You've probably heard the term well-being a ton lately, right? It's everywhere. Companies are talking about it, managers are pushing it. We're all supposed to be focused on it. But here's the thing. A really fascinating news survey out of Japan uncovered a paradox. For all our talk about well-being, we're actually feeling less happy at work. So how is that even possible? Let's get into it. And look, the conversation is happening. In just the last 2 years, the number of people who are even aware of the term well-being has more than doubled. We're now at over 27% of the workforce. And on the surface, you'd think, hey, that's great progress. But this is where it gets weird. All this talk, all this awareness, it's not actually translating into more happiness. In fact, when you look at the data, you see a trend that's, well, it's surprising and honestly a little worrying. It's going in the complete opposite direction.
Take a look at this chart. Since 2020, the percentage of people who say they're happy at work has actually gone down by more than 3 percentage points. Now, it's not some dramatic crash, but it is a steady, undeniable decline. And it's happening at the exact same time we're all supposedly paying more attention to well-being.
Okay, so here's our game plan for unpacking this whole thing. We'll start with the paradox itself. Then we'll get really clear on what we mean by well-being versus engagement. After that, we'll look at the surprising impact this has on the next generation, figure out the psychological traps we're falling into, and finally, find a practical way to start building our own well-being. All right, first up, the well-being paradox. Let's really dig into this central contradiction. More awareness, but less actual happiness. What is going on here? To even start to answer that, we have to make sure we're all speaking the same language. Which brings us to a super important point: well-being versus engagement. You know, when we talk about well-being at work, is it just another corporate buzzword that really means work harder? Well, according to this survey, people see a very, very clear difference. Yeah, it turns out when people hear well-being, they think of things like being relaxed, balanced, natural, having a healthy mix between work and your private life. But engagement, that brings to mind words like intense, driven, busy, work-centric. One feels sustainable and good for you. The other sounds like a one-way ticket to burnout. So just so we're all on the same page, this is the definition we're going to be using, and it comes straight from the study. It's not just about feeling good. It's about satisfaction, a sense of connection, joy, and, this is a big one, having the autonomy and freedom to shape how you actually do your work. Okay, on to our third section, the next generation's view. Now, you might think your happiness level at your job is, a personal thing. But what this research shows is pretty profound. It actually creates a ripple effect that directly impacts the future workforce. And I'm not just speaking metaphorically here. The way you feel about your job doesn't just end when you punch out for the day. It radiates, it goes home with you, and it shapes how the people around you see the entire world of work, especially the kids who are watching you. So the study asked students a simple question. Do you think your parents are happy with their work? About a third said yes, which is great. But look at this. Almost a quarter of them said no. That means nearly 1 in 4 kids are watching their parents come home every day from a job they believe makes them miserable. And that perception, it has a massive impact. Students who see their parents as happy at work are way more likely to have a positive view of work themselves. Look at the difference here. A huge 35-point gap in whether they think work can be fun. It shows that a parent's well-being literally shapes their child's entire outlook on what a career can be. So that really raises the stakes, doesn't it? And it brings us to a huge question. If our happiness has such a big impact on others, why are so many of us getting it wrong? Well, the survey suggests we might be falling into a couple of psychological traps. So the first trap is a cognitive bias called the focusing illusion. It's this funny thing our brains do where we tend to give way too much importance to whatever we're currently thinking about, and in the process, we totally ignore other factors that are just as, if not more, important for our happiness. And here's exactly how this plays out at work. The study found a big group of people who were almost exclusively focused on refreshment. Things like taking time off, having breaks, leaving work on time. And don't get me wrong, that stuff is important. But their intense focus on that one area means they end up underestimating other really powerful drivers of well-being, like feeling like you're contributing to others or growing as a person. And that leads us to the second trap. We think our personal recipe for happiness is fixed. But the reality is what the research calls the well-being transition. What makes you happy and fulfilled in your job evolves throughout your career. What worked for you at 25 isn't necessarily going to be what works for you at 65. Just check out this contrast. For workers in their 20s and 30s, happiness is really tied to getting that refreshment time and opportunities for self-growth. Unhappiness comes from things like overwork. But now look at workers in their 60s. For them, happiness is all about getting recognition for their role and good teamwork. Unhappiness comes from feeling like they're being suppressed or excluded. The exact same strategy just won't work for an entire career. So, if we're all falling into these traps, how do we get out? Well, this final part of the study offers a really powerful, proactive solution. It's not about waiting around for happiness to just find you. It's about actively building it yourself. I absolutely love this idea. It totally reframes well-being. It's not something that happens to you, it's something you do. It's a skill you can actually develop, a process you can work on every single day. The study has a great name for it, well-being crafting. And here's how it works. It all starts small. First, you just have a small moment of happiness at work. Maybe you help out a colleague, or you finally solve a tough problem. Step 2 is you consciously realize how important that feeling is. Step 3, you try to understand what specifically brought you that happiness. And the last step, the crucial one, is you act. You intentionally try to create more of those same experiences. It becomes this powerful feedback loop that just builds on itself. Okay, so let's bring it all together. What are the key things to remember? First, your well-being at work has a massive ripple effect on the next generation, so it matters more than you think. Second, you have to look beyond just getting time off to find your joy. Third, remember that what makes you happy is going to change over time. And maybe the most important takeaway is that you can take control, and it all starts with those small, positive experiences in your day-to-day work. Which really brings us to the final question. Knowing that your happiness at work influences not only you, but the people around you, and maybe even the generations to come, what small ripple, what intentional action will you take to start crafting your own well-being tomorrow?